Thank you. So I am talking about triathlon and recovery. One of the things that I've learned in my triathlon career is that you're only good if you're out there racing. And the key to racing is recovering. So I've kind of thrown together a bunch of stuff. It's not the best PowerPoint, but I'm here to talk about recovery and answer questions. And if you guys have questions about anything, I'll answer questions about anything training related, racing related, what I eat for dinner, anything. So feel free to just ask questions in the middle of this because I just had fun making these yesterday. So, all right, so I decided to write some stuff. I did all that. Cool. All right. So the key to training. Who wants to tell me what the key to training is? Consistency. All right. Somebody read my next slide. Anything else? Recovery. Okay. Good. I like that. Anything else? All right. So those are my keys to training. Consistency, minimizing days lost to injury, and going hard when you need to go hard. So one of the biggest things that I've learned over my time as an athlete, which started back when I was a little kid playing baseball, soccer, basketball. I played lacrosse and wrestled for a year, played ice hockey on the pond in my backyard. So I've pretty much played almost every sport. I never played football. That's probably one of the few sports I haven't played. I learned that the most important thing is to actually be healthy so you can actually play. So I definitely went through my share of injuries, which I'll talk about later. But once I got into college, I really learned about injuries because once I started to ramp my mileage up running-wise, that's when I started learning about injuries and, oh, this got injured, this is injured now, this is injured now. And that's when I started to lose time from injury. So I learned a ton in college about injuries. And once I became a triathlete after I graduated from college in 2004, the only really time that I've lost to injury has been this past year after I got a concussion, which really wasn't my fault anyways. But one day I hurt myself because I tied my shoes too tight. Another time, I rolled my ankle and had to cut a run short. But I pretty much have not been injured in my triathlon career. There have been little things that have happened, but as we'll talk about later, I try to be extremely proactive about injuries and recovery. So those are my keys to training. The more consistent you can stay, the better your training is going to be. Minimizing days lost to injuries is, we'll get into that a little later too, and going hard when you need to go hard because you have to go hard in order to race well. So what I've learned is preventing injuries is the most important piece of the puzzle. That is certainly easier said than done, but if you can learn how to tell when an injury is coming on, you're going to be much better off because you can immediately go and work on that injury. The other important thing about preventing injuries is becoming extremely efficient. And that's being extremely efficient at swimming, biking, and running. So it's going out and talking to your coaches, talking to other athletes, if your friends, if you don't have a coach, about how to be more efficient at running and biking and swimming. So I would always be a member of some sort of swim program. I would always go and be on a master swim team, or if your triathlon group swims, because you need to have somebody looking at your swim stroke to tell you what those little issues are. Because if you're coming across and catching over here, you're going to get shoulder issues. And if you're not rotating enough, you're going to get issues in your core. If you're turning your head too far, your neck's going to start hurting. So having those coaches looking at you while you're swimming is very important. And the same thing, getting a proper bike fit, extremely important. If you don't have a proper bike fit, you're going to have massive injuries on the bike. I mean, having a bike fit that's off by just a little bit, it's knee injuries, your back can start hurting, especially when you're in TT positions. And then making sure that your running shoes are A, new, and B, the right size for you. I was talking last night with one of my friends who's the foot doc for the Magic, and he said one of the guys came in and he's sponsored by Nike, and he has the wrong size shoes, and all of his toes are dead. You know, his toenails are falling off. Like, he looks like a runner. And I'm like, he's sponsored by Nike. He should be able to get the shoes he wants, but he just doesn't take the time to find the right size for him. And so that was one of the things that he told the athlete that he needed to go do. So it's making sure that you have the right running shoes. And then beyond that, it's really looking at your running stride. That's running and changing your running stride is one of the harder things to do because it's so ingrained in your body because you've been running since you started walking. So teaching somebody how to run differently is tough and takes a while. It can be done though. Next thing is you can't race if you can't train. Now, I guess that's not entirely true because I know a lot of people that don't train very much and then just go race. But if you want to race well, you need to be training well. And I think everybody's goal should be to race fast. It shouldn't be just to complete a race. When I'm going out to race, my goal is to race as fast and as hard as I can. So if you can't train, you're not going to be able to race. So that's the same thing is trying to stay uninjured. So personally, I've been through injuries and I've learned a lot from each of my injuries. Back when I was swimming in high school, I had shoulder tendonitis, which I found out was partially from swimming and partially from baseball because I used to pitch. So I went through some rehab stuff and shoulder stuff, and now on a regular basis I'm doing simple shoulder mobility exercises for swimming, and they're just easy ins and outs, attaching a cord that way, attaching a cord that way, like this. They're just very simple shoulder mobility exercises. You can even lying on a bench, you can do Ys and Ts and Is, and you just do those with 1 pound, 2 pound weights. And those are extremely important for shoulder strengthening, and that's something that a lot of people don't think about. You just go swim, but that's also important on the bike and also extremely important running, because when you're running, wherever your arm is, your foot's going to be the opposite. So if you look at sprinters, the reason that they build up all the strength in their upper body is because that's half of their power. They're running on their legs, but they're driving with their arms. When I was running in college, I started getting ankle tendonitis. I had some pretty bad tendonitis through here, and it's interesting, my brother actually just had the exact same issue, and I guess it was good because I could say to him, here's the problem. And the big problem with that was it was in the winter. I went to school up at Dartmouth, so we're running on the roads. The roads are very crowned up in New Hampshire so that all the snow and water runs off the roads. So running on an angle on a road like that, your foot isn't actually landing flat. You're running at an angle. So it was easy to see why I was getting that tendonitis. So what I did was went and hopped on the other side of the road and then hopped back on the other side. So I kind of tried to alternate sides of the road. So I was thinking, how can I even out this, the road? And so just kind of ran on opposite sides of the road. The other thing, I'll just finish this then the other thing that I also did was I thought in the winter, my shoes are harder just because the foam is going to stay harder. So I actually went down a level of cushioning. I'd been wearing stability shoes, and so I went down to a little more cushioning shoes, which stayed harder in the winter. Yes? The foot strike question. Okay. Yeah, no, it's fine. I'll take that tangent. I don't mind that at all. So I am not a doctor. I am not a biomechanist. But what I can tell you is if you're landing with your foot in front of you, you're slowing yourself down because your body has to get over it. If you're landing with your foot under you, you're going to be able to continue your momentum. If you're landing with your foot behind you, you're probably going to fall on your face. So I don't think there's any right answer to foot strike. I think that if you're landing with your foot under you, you're going to have the most, you're going to conserve your most momentum, and you're going to be more efficient because you're not overpowering yourself. I land pretty much here, so I land right on my midfoot and kind of roll in, and then my foot goes down. I've worked pretty hard to get to that point. It took a couple years, and I had a lot of my injuries that I can't even call them injuries because I was seeing the chiropractor once a week and getting massages, so I had the same pattern that was off. And that pattern was off because of years of running on the track. And so basically running on the track, you're always running the same way on the track. And because of that, I was landing more out here on this foot, and I was landing like this. So my body was constantly turning, and that just stayed with me. I went back with one of my biomechanic coaches, and we actually even looked at it from further back, from baseball. And we were talking about me playing baseball. It's the same thing. When you're batting in baseball, it's the same thing as running left-hand turns around the track. So it was interesting to see how my body has been used to moving in that pattern. So for me, it took a while to kind of balance myself out. But now if I look at the pattern on the bottom of my shoes, they're basically the exact same, which is kind of what you're going for. So my personal opinion on foot strike is you want to land with your foot under your body. If that's your toe, if you're doing a real forefoot strike, you're probably gonna end up with some sort of Achilles injury just because it's a lot more. There's a lot more stress put on there, but some people are fine with that. If you land on your midfoot, you're fine. I mean, it's really hard to land on your heel under your body. So one of the best things to do with that is to just practice doing really high turnover sprints. So starting off sprinting, and you just start and go like this, and then just go into a sprint. And that'll make you kind of stay under there. And there's also all sorts of other drills in terms of, we do stuff with running with a tire behind us. So you kind of take 2 bicycle tubes, wrap it around you, and have a tire coming off the back. And that makes you lean forward just a little bit, and that keeps your feet under you. So it's fun. It's fun to see a bunch of people running around a field with a tire. So, all right. IT band, so I got my IT band injury from running around the track. And that indoor track, 200 meters, it's just really hard on your body, and you're constantly in this motion. So this IT band was constantly being shortened, and it stayed shortened even when you went out and did long runs on the road. So I had a really bad IT band injury. Learned from that how and how not to have my IT band worked on. And I learned that working on your IT band and actually rolling straight on it sometimes isn't the best thing, because sometimes what happens is the muscles adhere. And so that's when I learned that I really needed to get massaged once a week if I was training at the level I was training at. And then this past year, I had a pretty interesting up and down season, but I ended up figuring out that I had gotten a concussion and a neck strain at the end of the year. And that actually was one of the hardest injuries to diagnose and to come back from. So I crashed I got kicked in the face in Hamburg in the swim. And so when I got kicked in the face, my neck just did a quick snap back. And after that race, I remember it all, but I was in a daze. I mean, I remember running and just running along and thinking to myself, wow, I'm running really slow. But I didn't really think about stopping. It didn't cross my mind to stop. It was kind of an out-of-body, weird experience. So that happened, and 3 weeks later I crashed in London really, really hard. And so I ended up trying to train after that, and my training was awful. I would go out and run 2 miles and be running at like 10 or 11 minute pace, which is, I mean, I probably walk faster than that normally. So for me, running 6.5, 7 minute pace is an easy run. So I was going out and I just couldn't run. I couldn't swim. I'd get in the water and I'd swim like a 200 or 300 and my body would just be done. So I ended up meeting up with a concussion specialist, and he said, oh, you definitely have a concussion. And so what we did for that was really interesting. We did a lot of neck stabilization exercises. And that's another thing that, talking to experts about that's another thing that a lot of athletes don't do a good job of, is working on stabilizing your neck, because where your head goes, your body's going to go. I mean, that's true of pretty much everything. So swimming, biking, running, where your head goes, your body's going to go. So I've been working really hard on stabilizing my neck recently. All right. If you take one thing away from all my talking today, it's this, and that's be proactive instead of reactive. And I think the worst thing you can do, I mean, this cuts through a lot of stuff, but in the triathlon and injury world, if you can be proactive and realize that an injury is happening, realize that you're getting to that level where you're getting close to having an injury, and that's when you're going to go and either cut back on your training or do something about it, you're much better off than, oh, I had an injury and it's been hurting for 3 or 4 days and I still tried to train through it. I've seen so many of my friends try and do that, and instead of being out for a couple of days, they're out for a couple of months. And that's the worst thing you can do as an athlete, because all of us want to be racing, we want to be training. That's the reason we're doing triathlon, because we have the opportunity to do 3 sports and go race all over the place. So you should try and be one step ahead of your injuries. Know your body and where your weakest areas are. This is something that if you get regular work done, you will know that. You will know, hey, when I go to the chiropractor, he always adjusts these same things. Or, hey, when I go to the massage therapist, they're always telling me, your right hamstring's tighter than your left one. Your, right shoulder's tighter. I mean, I can tell you pretty much every single thing that's tight on me, and it started to change around a lot more now that I've been a lot better about trying to fix things. But you definitely should know what things are. And it's funny because sometimes you look back on the injuries that you've had and you can see this pattern, and you don't even think of it as a pattern. So if your right foot was hurt, your left knee was hurt, your right hip was hurt, your left shoulder, that's actually a pattern because they're all compensating for each other. So it's kind of interesting to look back at some of the injuries that you've had, and you'll be able to see this pattern. And then spending the extra few dollars to see a therapist, especially if you want to race. I mean, I think it's tough sometimes to justify going once a week. I do it because I'm a professional athlete and I have to. But if you really want to race and you really want to be out there, it's worth it. And I think that spending that little extra money to make sure that you're racing is going to make you happier in the long run. It's a good thing. All right, there are a bunch of tools for recovery. There's body monitoring tools, recovery devices, and physical checkups that you can get. So we'll start with body monitoring. And so I actually work with a lot of these companies that I'm going to mention in here. And one of the reasons that I work with them is because I love this stuff. And for me, I actually went to pretty much all these companies and said, I'm using your product, I love it, I'd love to work with you. So that's always been my sponsorship philosophy as an athlete, is I go and find products that I like and then try and work with that company. I'd rather buy a product that I know is really good than work with a company that I don't think they make a good product. So for me, the reason that I'm working with some of these companies is because I love their products and I love what they're doing. So one of the companies that I'm working with right now is called Zeo, and they're a sleep monitoring company. And I've been a huge believer in sleep ever since high school. I actually was lucky enough in high school to, at my school, we were able to take gym classes and take free blocks if we were competing in sports. So I was smart and scheduled my gyms for first block, second block in the morning. And so I'd actually get to sleep in until 8 o'clock and come into school at like 9 a.m. So I'd go to bed at like 10 o'clock, wake up at 8 o'clock, and I'd be in school at 9 in time for first class at 9:15. So it was perfect. And I actually did the same thing in college. My roommate was up all night, and I would really try and sleep, because for me, I felt like it was better, even if I didn't get through all the material, it was better for me to sleep, absorb what I needed to absorb, and then wake up in the morning and try and cram a little bit more than stay up all night and be just kind of, cognitively off. So one of the cool things about Zeo is you basically wear a headband at night and you monitor your sleep. So it shows you when you're in deep sleep, when you're in REM sleep, when you're in light sleep, and it gives you a score off of that. So it can get competitive too. My coach has tried to outdo me, and he has not gotten a higher score than me yet. But the cool thing also is once you start correlating some of that data with training data, so you can pull out the deep sleep data, and for me that's the one that I've found to be the most important one. So you pull out deep sleep data because the deep sleep is actually your biggest recovery. And so it's telling you when your body's recovered, as opposed to your REM sleep, which is your brain recovering. So if you skip, basically if you go to sleep from 10 to 6, 10 to 2 is going to be your deep sleep time, and 2 to 6 and onwards is going to be your REM sleep time. So if you go to sleep at 1 in the morning, you're not going to get all your deep sleep. You're still going to get your REM sleep. Your REM sleep is going to make you feel like you're recovered, but your body isn't actually recovered. So I actually take my deep sleep numbers, and we can correlate them with my recovery and with how hard I've been training. Another thing that I've been starting to work with is heart rate variability. Now, I really don't know a ton about this, but my coach has done a lot of reading on it, and you know, it's a lot of people take their pulse in the morning, but this actually takes the difference in between the beats and does an algorithm, and it comes out with a number. And it seems to be pretty good. My coach likes it. I think it works pretty cool, so I've been playing around with that a lot. Rest-wise is another one. You basically take a pulse oximeter and put it on your finger in the morning, and it tells you your oxygen saturation and your heart rate when you wake up. And then you take a series of questions, and those questions kind of give you a recovery score, and that recovery score allows you to either say I should cut back on my training or I'm recovered. It's a cool tool, and I think one of the nice things about the heart rate variability in the sleep is that you can't influence it. One of the things with the rest-wise, if you felt like answering I feel great every single day, you wouldn't get anything out of it. So you actually have to be tough on yourself to get something. Also, just using a scale to monitor your weight. If you're seeing big fluctuations in your weight from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, that's not necessarily a huge thing. Or not necessarily a good thing. You will see it based on just your just average. You know, you're going to weigh less in the morning than you will in the evening. But if you see huge fluctuations, it means that maybe you didn't hydrate enough during the day, or maybe you didn't eat enough, and so you're probably not going to be as recovered for the next day. And then another thing to do, and you know, I know a lot of people have gotten into yoga, and it's just taking an overall body inventory. And that can just be when you're lying in bed. It can be, you know, if you do yoga on a regular basis, you're doing that anyways. But just kind of lying down before you go to bed and just feeling your body and seeing what hurts, seeing what feels off, and just monitoring those things. And I think you can get a lot out of that, and it'll help you get in tune with your body. Recovery devices. So Normatec makes a pretty cool recovery leg compression device. Basically big boots that you lie in, and it pumps your leg and recovers. They work awesome. I think they're coming out with a regular model right now. Right now you have to have a doctor's prescription note, because they're basically started off as being for diabetes patients to help with the blood flow. But they work great, and it's kind of an easy way to get a massage while you're just sitting around watching TV. Ice bath, another great thing to do. Ice bath basically stimulates blood flow to your legs because your body's trying to warm your legs back up, or your upper body. It's not very much fun going full up to here in an ice bath though. I think both those things are great recovery devices, and they're really useful. It's easier to have an ice bath than it would be to go out and buy a Normatec, but if you can get one of those every once in a while, it's great. And I know a lot of triathlon teams or triathlon stores have started buying those to give to some, or to let people use. Then there's also kind of physiological or physical checks. So I've started working with Inside Tracker, and it's blood monitoring. And this is something that I've been doing for years. And luckily my doctor is awesome, and I went to him like 4 or 5 years ago, and I said, hey, I got my blood work done. You know, do you think I might be able to get some blood work done, and we can kind of keep tabs on these numbers? And he's a runner. You know, I was going to the Olympics anyways, so he was like, sure. So he of course writes down, you know, what to get, and he writes tired, low iron, possibly, or whatever. So because you know, he knew I wanted it, he was fine with doing it. And now most people aren't going to be able to get that done. So luckily he's been able to help me out over the past couple of years, and I was able to get it done a couple times a year. But now, which is awesome, is Inside Tracker's allowing you to basically, you go onto their website and you basically pay for the blood work, you go to a lab, you get it done, and everything comes back to their website. And on that website you have, over time it keeps track of all your numbers, which is really, really cool, because you don't have to worry about looking from, you know, what was my past one, what's this one. So it has all that data, but it also shows you nutritionally what you should change. And I think that's probably the coolest thing, because just having a number sitting there doesn't really say anything. But if you know that your vitamin B12 levels are off, and they can say that if you eat more of this product, it's going to help you. Or if you know that something is too high, you should eat less of something. It helps you make those nutritional choices, which are going to affect your blood chemistry, which definitely affects your racing and training. And I think that's one thing that a lot of athletes haven't had access to do. And I mean, I think it's a great tool, and it's something that everybody should be checking up on anyways. You know, regardless, just because you should always kind of know where your blood is, because, you know, that's I mean, that's what's driving your body is your blood. So what levels are you looking at? What levels? There's a lot of stuff. They have a booth over there. I'm hanging out there for the rest of the day. You can come by, and I mean, they can explain it a lot better than I can. For me, I just know it's important. There's different things that show. You can find out how much iron you have. You can find out there's certain things that have to do with build-up and breakdown of muscles, and also just regular stuff like glucose and all that. So you could talk to them a little bit more about exactly what's important in each one. But I mean, to me, it's one of those things that until now people haven't had easy access to, and I think it's going to be a great thing for people to use. So, okay. So also massage, we talked about that a little bit. Massage, super important. And especially finding I don't know if I wrote it, I probably wrote it on the next slide, but so massage is extremely important, but also trying to stay with the same therapist or same couple of therapists, because those therapists, if they're good, will be able to tell you different things in your body. They'll be able to say, your shoulder's feeling more sore today than it was last week. And it might be something that you didn't even feel, but they can feel it in your muscles. So I think having that continuity is extremely important. Chiropractor, same thing. I use a chiropractor once a week. I know some people hate a chiropractor, but for me, it's extremely important. But I use my chiropractor, but I also get exercises to help me stabilize the things that are coming off. So not just going to my chiropractor and getting adjusted and not doing anything about it. Another thing that I've been using for the past 4 years now is muscle activation therapy. I know there's a really good therapist in DC who I've worked with a couple times. Now explaining this is a lot harder than anything else, but basically this muscle activation therapy works with peeling the onion off of the compensation patterns that you have. So they look and try and see where you're weak on your body. So they'll do simple muscle tests, and you'd be amazed at what you're weak on. I'll have great training one day, and I'll go in and I'll do a simple muscle test where I'll have my leg out this way and try and hold it out, and it'll just swing right back in. So they'll muscle test it, and then they'll actually reactivate that muscle. I've been doing muscle activation therapy for once a week for the past 4 years now. I actually bring them with me on trips and stuff. So for me, it's really important, and it's a cool tool to have. And I also work with them to create exercises to work on those weaknesses. And once again, it's all about continuity and consistency. And then I think this is the last slide. Cool. So my other thoughts is make your easy days easy, which allows you to make your hard days hard. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people have problems with, is actually going easy. When you have an easy day, go easy. And I mean, go easy. My wife and I go for easy rides, and we're riding like 11, 12 miles an hour on the trail and just chilling. Like, we don't care, you know, people are blowing past us. It doesn't matter. It's not a race, it's my easy day. On my hard day, I'm going as hard as I can go. But to do that, it's by going easy on my easy days. And then mental recovery is as important as physical recovery. That's zoning out, stepping away. I was going to put a picture in here, but I didn't. Yesterday, 2 days ago, I went to the beach and we played in the waves. I'm in Florida right now, so we went to the beach, played in the waves. I actually went surfing, got up for the first time. So just doing that mental recovery and doing something different is so good for your body. And that's one of the nice things about triathlon, is that we have those 3 sports instead of just one sport. Instead of just running or just swimming or just biking, we can go out, and if you don't feel like running, you don't have to do it that day. But I still think it's important to do something else, challenge your body a little bit, and have that mental recovery and feel refreshed that you want to train and want to race. So that is basically it. Any questions? All right. Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much. And you can come ask me questions. I'll be hanging out over there all day. So.